I'm Brandon Reinches. I'm the senior curator here at MAM, and if you don't know, you're sitting in the Linda M. Frost Gallery that's dedicated to always showing contemporary Native artists, living, breathing contemporary Native artists. And so it's kind of a wonderful gallery. That dedication has been ever since the museum expanded and created this gallery specifically for that purpose 17 years ago. And since that time, there's not been a time that we haven't had a show. So it's pretty incredible to work with so many great artists in our region to be able to feature such incredible artwork. And part of the reason we do that is because this is Salish and Kalispa homelands. And if you think about that, that's not something that happened once long ago. That's something that's ongoing and happening now. This is where the Salish and Kalispa people live. And with that dedication, we try to keep an active presence in the museum. Also in the permanent collection, we have a part of the collection is dedicated to contemporary Native artists. It's a small part of the collection. It's about 20%. But it is the most active part of the collection that there is. It's the part that we get frequent loan requests for, and we send work out, and it's just amazing how many people are excited about work like that. That focus on that homeland is kind of interesting because that's what the focus of this talk is. Did anybody make it to the previous talk? We had a storytelling event.
It was fantastic.
You're one person, two people, so that's great. So it's a whole new audience with a completely different mix of artists, so the conversation won't be repeated. But I wanted to introduce, first of all, I wanted to thank MCAT for doing a media assistance grant to put this out there in the world. But I wanted to acknowledge that we have Stephen Hunt here, Linda King, Corwin Claremont, Aspen Decker, Josh Crowd, Buck Hits with the Stick, and Frank Finley. And they're all artists in this exhibition. And the way the exhibition happened was that I was talking to Corky and Linda, and I said, who should be invited? How should we do this? We want to do an invitational show of artists from CSKT tribal lands, and can you recommend somebody? And they recommended folks, and then those folks recommended folks, and then they recommended folks. Some people could participate, some could not. But we also asked each artist what they wanted to include in the exhibition and how they wanted to be represented. So when I, for instance, went and visited Aspen's studio, she said, I'm going to make 3 really incredible ledger pieces, and this is what they're going to be. And I just saw the paper and just the beginnings, and you thought, that's amazing. What a great way. And so that's kind of visiting people in their studios when I went and visited Frank and Josh, and hearing the stories that people had around their artworks was how we came up with that storytelling event, that everybody had such a powerful story. This is a little bit more forced, this conversation. It was describing a theme of land and culture. Amazingly, last time we had so many conversations about land and culture, I hope we didn't exhaust ourselves and have nothing to say today. But I just wanted to start with one question and say, what is your relationship to the land? And each person can think about that and talk about how they wanted to start, and then we'll go from there. We're probably going to run about an hour, just so you can kind of time yourselves. Feel free to get up and move around. There's some refreshments in the library if you are falling over or your blood sugar drops through the bottom of the basement. But if you need to go ahead and go. And if you have any questions, why don't we save questions until they end, unless there's a really natural way to do it. But these artists are going to be here for a little while afterwards, and we can just kind of ask those questions then. With that, I'm going to throw that question out there, and we'll see how it goes to start the conversation. So, thinking about your work, what's your relationship to land?
Only an hour.
Really? I'm out. If it's just an hour, I'm out.
Yeah. All right, we're down one.
So for me, you know, the relationship with the land is paramount. It's one of those things that, I mean, all of my students, all the people I deal with and talk to on a regular basis, they know that that's the ground floor of everything that I do. Comes from all my thoughts, and everything comes from the land. Gathering, we're getting ready to dig Bitterroot here any time now. So these things, the best way to discuss it to a Western audience is a contract. We have this obligation to go and dig these roots and gather them and pray and make sure that the Creator knows that we're there, and there's a give and take. It's never just a take. It's always this always back and forth, and it's this contract of going to all these places that I've been going to since I was little. There's no way to, you know, to not do that. I don't see any other way to go through the world without understanding that as humans we have this place to be, and this, like I said again, obligation that we have to go and do those things.
When you were a kid, did you leave beads or tobacco when you gathered plants?
If I had them.
Yeah, yeah. Or trade that rock you found earlier.
Yes,
trade that one.
it's pretty. Yeah, it's always been, you know, since my dad was. We moved back here in 1973 after Dad got out of the military, and we wore out, in the first 3 years we were here, we wore out 2 pickups. Mm-hmm. Because my dad was taking us everywhere. My grandpa, the verbiage here is from Pete Beaverhead, and he was my grandfather. You know, very, very close relationship with him, my cousins Alan and Eugene and Stevie Arca, we were these Indian boys that were up there with these motorcycles terrorizing the whole hillside up there. Andy Andrews and the family that was just up there. And, you know, they would go along and they'd say, here are these things, and they were picking things out of the, here, try this, eat this. And it was, you know, oh, cool. Mm-hmm. And there's food here. I'm not going to starve.
Yep.
And it was,
right.
but it was always that thing, always going, you know, with all the berries and all the things. My dad, you know, made it imperative to me that you have to be involved with everything going along, with everything in the landscape, and being there. And I don't. Some days I just don't have words. It's just the best way, just the best thing to go in the mountains and just walk for however long it takes, just to reconnect with all of that things. Ashe.
Oh. Well, to add to that, definitely when you're out sourcing materials and looking at what's around you, the land dictates what you have, and there's different by the rivers, up high in the mountains, mid mountains, and every place has its own ecology, its own system. And once you get to tap into that, you'll know what wood is good for what thing. So then you can make war clubs or your fishing wares or just different materials for different things. And it's usually the land provides that materials for that thing that you need at that place. That's why there's always willow and dogwood by the streams where you need to make fish weirs. That's why those hard rocks where you break them and they make flint, that's why they're always at those creeks by the plains, because you need those arrowheads for the plains, the buffalo, you know. Everything is where it's supposed to be. So to bring it into the modern age, like with this one, I go into the field and I found that old car. I am still outsourcing materials. That old car, now the berry bushes it's a sarvis berry. It's what we got for hardwood that doesn't twist. It'll crack right down the middle if you need it. Hawthorn, and that twists when you crack it. So you get the right wood by the river and you go into the stream, and I see the field grasses after the cattle damage. You go into the high field grasses, old buffalo land, and then there's that dead car instead of a buffalo. So I went and sourced off of that dead car, and I got me that thing and made me a tomahawk. Boy, I wanted to keep it too, you know. But then I looked at it and I thought, hey, that looks like a buffalo. So I scraped some buffalo hide, cut it up, put it on there, carved some horns. Oh, heck, now it's art. I call it reclaiming the plains. That's a connection to the land, you know. Good say. Yeah.
Do I have to talk?
No.
It's a privilege to live here in western Montana and on Confederated Salish Kootenai land. And all that I've learned from the college and Cameron and Frank. As a jeweler, it's kind of weird because what I use my materials are so extractive, right? Because you got to do the mining, you got to get the silver. So I don't know.
There's no more closer to the earth than that, brother.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot to give back, right? Because I'm getting it through this.
And that's why you do the art,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
If
just
everybody
pass it
see
off to
Josh's pieces over here, one is a
Some of my favorite pieces.
one is a
in here.
bolo
Oh, thank you.
that
Yeah.
he gave to Frank. It's Frank's bolo
Frank's
on loan
bolo.
Yeah.
that Josh made, and then the
I'm totally
painting
into
behind.
We need one of those paintings so I can put it on my fridge, Josh.
Yeah.
What? I can put it on a frame, in the fridge.
It's interesting to hear your relationship to your materials. It's still from the land, but you're thinking about the impact.
Mm-hmm. Because there's so much waste, there's tailings and chemical processes that go into this, so it is something that is taking away, but like Buck said, being able to take that, make some art out of it.
Mm-hmm. One of the most sacred things I can make is pipestone, a pipe. And when everything in that pipestone that is the blood of our people, to breathe it is poison. To mess with it is poison. Every part of the process can kill you. It'll take time, but it can't. So you have to bury it. There's certain ways you do things. And you take care, and the way you take care of those things, that makes you closer to those medicine people that know. Don't you guys mess with that stuff. You let the experts do it, huh? So that is a closer relationship, brother, than I think you think.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Man.
Yeah. So to go along with, what they're saying, there's a lot of values that is shared amongst our communities, and a big part of that is the reciprocity to the land. So our relationship, the stewardship that we have. And so in order to take these things, these natural resources that we're using, we have to give something back. So when he's talking about tobacco or something that is giving back, that prayer and that respect is really important. Anytime we're harvesting our plants, when we're harvesting things that we're going to use for our doing good with our hands, our belongings.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having that reciprocity is shared from our ancestors all the way down the line. And so you can see it between different generations, and even with my own kids, I make sure that they're learning those same values.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way that, our earth, it knows anytime we're taking too much.
Mm-hmm.
If we're taking more than what we need, we're going to deplete resources in certain locations. So, our people, they knew how much we were taking, and there was land management to every aspect of our seasonal travel, all of the materials that we harvested. So if we went to a site for, a few years and we knew that it's time to leave that site alone, or using fire knowledge and using fire to to burn the land. So having this fire kills or takes all that like dead and the dry brush, and it brings new life. And we could notice that even here in Missoula. If you're driving like out by the Y, you'll see where there was that fire, or even over here on the other side of the M Hill, it's all green now. And so, we needed this land management. We needed to use this fire, and if the Western society would listen to some of our indigenous knowledge, it might actually help with this forest fires and this climate change and these things that are happening, where it's taking out even more of the landscape than we want, because we're not doing that year, or every 10 years is typically when we would burn. And not only did we burn, but we also did communal hunts. So there was multiple purposes for everything we did. We were we used techniques that were sustainable. So it wasn't just doing things where we're out hunting, chasing this deer down. No, we're going to do it the best way. We're going to make sure we have these tools like Buck has over here. We're going to do it as a community, and it's all very deliberate in the way, the timing, the seasons that we did all these things. So our connection to this land and the places from our ancestral homelands, it still very much is our identity today, because our ancestors were there, because they were doing things that was, respecting the land, this land stewardship. And that stuff doesn't just go away. Those stories are still there. And that's some of the things that, a lot of us try to do. We go back to those sites in order to build memory, in order to stay connected to who we are. So, Shane.
That storytelling's been a big part of your life?
I know. That's like a big part of how our culture is passed on, is oral tradition, all of these stories. And these stories tell us about the landscape, what we did in those sites, and it's a way to keep our culture alive. So,
So we're just in time, we can start back.
Lars and Sarah and Persephone, we only just started and just asked what's your relationship to the land, and we just kind of started here, and it naturally evolved that people were going from one to the other. We don't have any microphones today, the sound system's not working, but Corky was just getting ready to dive in and talk about that. Thanks for coming.
Lynn Lynch. It's good to be a part of this gathering here in this group, and all the visitors here. I have to stand up because my voice is not as strong as some other voices here. But it's really good to hear a perspective, and why the work on the wall that you see here has an importance to talk about just these things. As a artist, especially a tribal artist or indigenous person, your work reflects not only this time, but it also is reflective of past time. Like you always say, we've been here for, 10, 15,000 years, which is the time of our ancestors, and it allowed us to be here today. So we always have that respect. And it's also, you can't help but think it's part of our DNA as well. We're, tribal people coming from different places, we're there, placed there by the Creator, just like all the plants and the animals And of course, they came first before us, so again, we have to always have great respect for those who came before us, because they prepared the way so we could be here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those things. And you talk about the placement of different materials that are out there. Yeah, they were placed there so we could come and borrow them or use them, and maintaining that great respect for everything out there is really important. There's a time when we couldn't go to Walmart and buy our shirts and stuff. We had to go to the out here someplace and get those items. And when you do that, then you have that awareness of where it came from and how important that element or that item was, that it showed itself to you so that you could take those things or borrow those things. And as Aspen is saying, it's done in a respectful way. You don't overly harvest because, well, it might not be there next year if you do. So you're always looking ahead and thinking of the creation of things in and around, like a circle. Everything's connected. Nothing out there is not connected. You can't do something over here without affecting something over there. So it's just that kind of basic concept that mainly Indigenous people are really aware of. And somehow that got lost with some of the other peoples, but that's something that's still pretty important and within our, like I say, maybe our DNA, So when we look at something out there, we might look at it from a little different perspective because of that DNA, but it's not that everybody else can't look at it that way too. Because at some point, I would hope that was also part of everybody's DNA, But it's important, and I think the work in this room reflects, that basic attitudes. But that's enough of me.
Okay, now I said no questions.
Brandon has a question.
But I've got a question. When we were talking about the show, and one of the things that you reflected on really struck me, and you talked about there's really no difference between land and culture, and there's no difference between tradition and contemporary. Is that something that you could talk about now, or is that better for another time?
Well, I like that.
Yeah, it's hard. It'd be hard to separate those things out.
Yeah.
How come?
Well, if you look at a lot of the items in this room, such as Linda's baskets there, you see very contemporary looking kind of designs in those baskets. And those designs are very similar to designs that were created thousands of years ago. And the basket making itself, Linda will probably talk a little bit about. And those are old, very old techniques, but they still bring in the sense of contemporary. And you can see some of the artists, the contemporary artists today that have become quite famous, pick up on a lot of designs and things that from our tribal communities and use them in their own work. Of course, because they're noted artists, they get acclaimed for, gee, that's what a great design that is, blah, 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 but, yeah. But it's just something that, it's just a part of what we do, and we get, like this group is talking about, all our inspiration comes from out there around us. And it really doesn't matter where we're living. Some of us have spent years someplace else. For myself, I was in LA for about 15 years working there as an artist and stuff. but I was constantly drawn to the environment around me, trying to make sense of it down there. So a lot of my work is not too dissimilar from what you see here. And I didn't fully realize that until I came back home in '84 again to get myself back into the cultural of our community and other things. But it's just important. Does that kind of say something?
I have to add to that, in your art, Corky, you see that use, how a lot of native communities will. How many of you have seen a plant that isn't native to like the area and found its use? And you look at all these things like dandelion, that's culture now. I know how to use its root, its leaves, its flower. It's part of our life. And if you look at Corky's work, it has that connection to that old, that native, that tribal, but just in the making of the prints and using these materials, often you can use the students' leftovers. You're using like stuff that is just already there, so it won't go to waste, and you can do a lot of that work with it. So it's like finding the use in these modern things with these eyes, you know. And I think that's what I see in all these artists. Yeah.
Tamina Ahmad?
Ooh, man.
All right, so my relationship is, she's my mother.
Mhm.
The earth is my mother. She will teach us many, many things. A lot of my baskets have stories that go along with them. We can probably talk about those later. But that's how I view, that's my relationship with the land. Is she's my mother. I'm not going to take too much. I'm very respectful to her. And that's about all I can think of.
As an elder, person who knows about a lot of this stuff, do you think it's disrespectful to not use, so here's this stuff that we used to use, and I'm thinking of what Aspen was saying, and now we just don't, and then it overgrows and grows wild, and isn't that detrimental to not find out what these things are for and what fibers that you can twist, whether it's modern or old? You know, some new fibers will hurt your fingers, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
But it's mostly natural fibers
Right.
that you're using.
That you're
so that's
using.
not, and it's good to use those natural fibers. That's what that's why she put them there for
Right,
us.
and I think it's
She put 'em there
disrespectful
for us to use.
to not find out.
In many different ways that we would like to use them, whether they're vessels to put things into
Yep.
or, whatever. So right now, my brain's not working really well. I've been 9 days on the road, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I love your earrings.
Thank you, Buck. You're up, Steve.
Oh, I thought my daughter would speak for me.
She can speak for
They-
herself. I've seen her speak for herself with her work.
I think they all said what I was thinking.
Mm.
It's hard to be at the end, isn't it? It's hard to think of something new to say.
You can sit in this chair and start again.
Yeah, just start it over.
Your question, Brian, what was the exact question that you had? What is
Looking at your photos, what's your relationship to the land?
I
What's the
wouldn't even say
relationship?
that's an individual thing. I wouldn't even say that's an individual thing, because that's a ours thing, that's a we's thing.
Yeah.
That's not, you guys ready for this?
Yeah,
Spit it out.
yeah.
I mean, like that question has got so many nuances. There's no way we can like not talk about our beliefs and our thinking and this reciprocity like that, you know, and it's like really, it's like living in relation. And if you want to think about contemporary and things like that, we don't think in terms of time. The only thing that we think in terms of time is how many, you know, winters we've lived or things like that. But when they talk about time in the sense, it's often referred to, you know, like there could be a word in the language that refers to the dog days or certain events in our histories, and that. So this, like what Korke was saying, if you imagine that there's a pool, it's all living in there, like, and that's our relationship to the land. I couldn't just take, because we have this knowledge, we're constantly thinking about that relationship and how we live in relation to everything. So I couldn't just take a stone, and most people would think, you know, if I just threw that in the water, oh, the ripples are gone. But we know, even though we didn't see the ripples go across the pond, that affected everything along the way, frontwards, backwards, sideways. You can't, and that's really a reflection of our spiritual beliefs and things like that, and how we live in relation to the land. We can't make decisions without those things taking place, and those images on the wall, they're past, future and present. Because I'm talking about that, you know, that dugout canoe, that was, you know, the first one made in over 100 years, and that was the first time that it touched the waters of the Flathead River. That was a really special moment for me, and all I did was take what I knew from the past and what was happening currently and what I want for the future of our people, and stopped it. We stopped it. It's a moment in time that can never be the same twice. And, you know, and there was kids from Twigo that we met here the other day, and I had my clients that, you know, in the work that I do on the res, like, they were all just, it was the same thing. I was doing two things at once. I was talking to the future, and I was connecting the past to the current.
Yep.
And yeah, that, man, this is, yeah, we don't have enough time. But, you know, and like these words on the wall, Pete's words, they're not just words. They're all the things I'm talking about. They're this values that we have. They're the thoughts that we have. They're how we make decisions. Like that's what you guys see there is just a few words. That's an excerpt. You know, that's just an excerpt, and we wouldn't even be here without, you know, like this wouldn't have came to be without Pete's words.
Right.
That's something from the past. So Pete threw a rock back then.
Right then.
Now we're just catching it.
Yeah.
And speaking for our people. And what I say, you know, like, for her, like, I wanted to be at home. I wanted to be riding my horses today. I wanted to be playing music. I wanted to be living in that space. So, you know, coming here, but the way that I've taught, you know, my daughters and how we live is just like the land is like a book.
Yeah.
But it's alive and it's breathing, and it's got the past, it's got the future, it's got all those things in one. And we just are out there reading and feeling our way through that book. The words aren't just words, they're alive, they're moving, and that's just who we are. That's the way that the Creator gave to us.
That's powerful. Thank you.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I was gonna say. Thanks for the joke.
I thought you were gonna say,
Not yet, not yet.
That's quiet.
It's quiet.
I didn't write nothing down.
Oh,
None of
shit.
us did, Marcia.
Oh, okay.
Come on, Mars.
Well, I mean, it was already late, so I assume everybody said the exact same thing. But, you know, I guess the answer that I can give to the question is that, you know, it may sound cheesy, but art imitates life, you know? Everything on these walls and everything that we create is something that's from us and it's part of our life and put onto imagery, and it's representative of what we live and how we live. It's a glimpse, but at the same time, it's not just a reflection. It is a life. It is a life. You know, everything is connected to each other. Like you were saying, like time isn't just a straight line. It's a cycle. It's a circle. It's a cycle. It's reciprocal. And so every time we look at these, it's not like it's just, oh, it's there. It's like, no, it's something that came from us and is representative of us, not just that static moment, but all the time. And so, everything is from our life. Everything is part of life. Everything is life. So, you know, whether or not the stuff we make is, you know, like the art we make, like it's the paints come. I certainly didn't make paints from plants and put them onto my own.
I showed you how to do that.
I know, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But you know, like all of the stuff that we have comes from the earth, you know, and everything comes that we have comes from the earth. So, you know, it's a thing that's been said several million different ways, but it means the exact same thing. Shayla.
Yes.
Good job, Mars.
Askoy.
Mother Mars.
Yeah, I agree with this guy. I'm from New Mexico. I moved here from Santa Fe. Unfortunately, the person that introduced me to Montana couldn't be here today. He's back at the Institute of American Indian Art, working on his degree. But he's in this show, Sound Sandoval. And he brought me up here for the first time one year for Thanksgiving. And so I have a different connection because I'm from the desert, I'm from Eslata Pueblo. But I was really fortunate to have Joanne Big Crane, his mother, as my mother-in-law, because she took me out and taught me about plants I'd never seen before, showed me, you know, where the sweetgrass grew and what's death camas and what's not. You know, took me to my first bitterroot dig, you know, taught me how to make baskets and moccasins. I have so much respect for her, and I wish she could be in this show today. Because she's an OG, and she really introduced me to this area in a way that that was deep, and it really helped me to appreciate my own cultures and where I came from, because seeing her connection made me realize that what I experienced growing up was completely different, and there's a way to do things, and our ways aren't the same. And from speaking to gathering plants to doing artwork, to our songs, to our drums, our ways aren't the same. And I think she gave me so much in what she taught me. And so being here, I had the opportunity to move back home just recently after my mom passed away. And I just, I may do it. I love Santa Fe, but I love Montana so much more. And I'm addicted to snow, and everybody hates it.
No, not everything.
But
We know we need it.
that's my connection to it. So, thank you.
You can have ours now.
So thank you for being here. That's my answer.
Or is it going back to me?
Yeah. Ours are up.
Questions?
Yeah, we could do questions, huh?
I do have a question. What you said struck me, that art imitates life.
Yeah.
But what strikes me about this artwork, and your artwork in particular, because you have a piece of your artwork on the land, and you have a QR code that has brought it interactively into us, is that in the case of this artwork, it's art that is imitating life, but life that is imitating art. There's an interactive element with this artwork that is so deep and so profound, and it changes the way I'm seeing the land. I have shared the story of your artwork and your artwork with about 25 people that I know in my life. This has profoundly moved me in a way that I can't explain. And that's the difference. There's a wholeness to the way that the art is done here that has layers of past and present and spirit all interwoven in a way I've never seen before. And it moves me deeply. And I thank everyone here for your impact on my life.
Actually, I have one more thing that I would like to add that I kind of thought about after. Like thinking about our connection to the land and the way that, our perspective, our worldview is. My maps here, they're all done on Montana maps,
Right.
a United States map.
Good point.
And these maps, they're created to colonize our people,
Yeah.
colonize, saying this is the boundaries.
This is the line.
Yeah, this is how the landscape looks.
Don't you
and-
stick your toe over there.
Yeah, that's not your territory. But, I want to use these maps as a way to decolonize and to share our perspective, our relationship with the land and our history. So these, Montana maps, this is what happened here. Our stories are thousands of years old. We have the stories of this land, and so yeah, I just wanted to mention that about my maps.
And as part of what I was talking about, like art is part of life. Not only is like everything is part of our life, like what we do is part of our life. So like language is a part of our life too. So with Aspen's work, you could see Salish on the artwork, and that's what we use in our day-to-day life. Is we use what we have, and we use what we can. And so being able to use that in art is just even more poignant, I guess is the word I'm trying to think of, when it comes to, you know, the concept of art imitates life. That's my thought.
About what you all said and the different ways that you articulated that was wonderful. And I was thinking, Stephen was so nice that he didn't say this, but it seems like almost the question is wrong. Like even starting with that question, it's not even the right way to ask. So if the question's wrong, why does the conversation come back to land so often?
I think it's the material aspect. There's a lot of that material thinking. It's more of the want for land, not from in a sort of I'm gonna get political for a second. It's more of like a corporate sort of thing that's for profit, for gain. Where for us, it's like, it's not gain for us. It's what we live. We live to live.
Right, it's part of our identity. It's who we are. We have this love for the place we live. You know, we live in Western Montana, and I tell people that come to say, and they say, well, you know, they don't think I'm particularly, you know, religious or anything, but you can ask my wife that every morning I get up and I walk out and I step onto my front porch and the Mission Mountains are there every day. And it doesn't matter, and I'm looking and I'm thanking the Creator that this place is there and that this is there, and they say, but it's covered in snow and clouds. You can't see it. I said, I don't have to see. This is Bison Creek, this is North Crow. That's McDonald Lake. I know where these places are because my heart feels those things. Because I know they're there. I know Corky's house is right over there someplace. Because that's where it is.
That's where he is.
Because I can just point, because my heart knows these places are there. And it's the love of the place, it's the love of the land that you know, there's no good way to explain it really. There's not words. It's we're the people of the land. We're all the people, and the love of the land is what binds us and holds us together.
I think if we had wings, the whole conversation would shift from land to the sky.
There'd be puddles to get drinks of water.
I think
Places to fish.
Yeah.
I think there's something to say for that point, that all, you know, not just this land and this, but, you know, all life being sacred and having that kind of foundation in your mind. So when you go to use a material, you know that it took something like mining to get that disc brake from that car that I went and outsourced from the field to gather for myself and you know, and make this thing. What we're doing is what's the word you guys say?
Reciprocity.
That word. And so give and take. So like what we're doing is we know all life is sacred. And so when we take something, we want to give back, and then when we take that thing, we want it to be I think like he explained, it's like you're bringing it back to life in a different form.
It's a renewal.
There's no death, it's just changing form.
Energy changes, energy shifts, transformations.
Renewal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, I was slightly offended by the question because it's like, do I really have to answer?
It's the groundwork.
Like, do I have to answer this question that seems so ridiculous to me?
As a native, for sure.
But like, and when I'm talking about the pond or the water, I'm not talking about Earth, I'm talking about the universe. I'm not talking, this concept of, like she's saying, like the maps, that's not, we do not think in those terms. When I take my pictures, sometimes, you know, like, I don't, you know, I'll put foreign objects in there, to pose the question.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, if you guys have looked at those images on the end, like, I'm asking that question on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah.
Are we living in a way that considers the good of all things?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really what Brandon brought out in this thing. I thought, how am I going to live up to Pete's words? But this is, I don't want to go on that rant. The thing about the land and that concept, if we're considering, like, we don't, like, yeah, everybody wants to confine us, like, as if we live in a box. And our thinking doesn't live in a box. Our beliefs don't live in a box. We're not like, and so these kids coming to the, you know, coming from the reservation, that's the first thing I told them. I said, these places weren't built for us. They weren't made for us. Nobody's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make photography, and then an little Indian kid on the res is gonna be making images talking about his culture, his people, and then he's gonna be in a museum. That was never the intent, you know. Like, no, those things, we took those tools and are talking about that. But land and that concept has been so pushed on us that even our kids believe it. Our kids are not living in connection to these things that are off the reservation, that our people have used for thousands of years. So, and so I try to share those things with my children, and realize that they're, for us, Montana, the reservation, that's just bullshit. Those boundaries are just, because you can't box us in. Like, we were here for thousands of years. Our DNA lives outside of these boundaries, everywhere, across the whole entire state, all the way. And speaking primarily from my Blackfoot side, all the way from North Saskatchewan, all the way into South America.
Eastern United States.
How are you going to tell me, or, like, you know, and these sacred sites that we have, we access them almost every year, and so, I purposely do not let go of those hunting places, because I want my children to know that it is not within the reservation boundaries. Your life does not occur in there, that it has occurred outside, because those things weren't there. The pond that I'm talking about, it is far beyond what we could even talk about here. You know, those are things that we would talk about in ceremony. And yeah, this idea of, like, just, it's not real. It's not real to us, but, you know, like, unfortunately, because of assimilation and colonization, you know, it's such a weird construct, social norms, right?
Yeah.
This thing, like, it's such a weird construct, like, because, you know, everybody wants to live in a two-dimensional space all the time, like this camera, seeing in everybody's on their phone, social media.
Yeah.
My life's happening, so, no way.
I think that's why, like, literally, to capture what you're saying, Aspen's work is that it's literally capturing that kind of thought processes. If you look at the images, the fence, the fact that they're on maps, it literally, without words, invokes all that thinking. And especially the real old one with the old design. It really brings back, like, because you see the real old designs on this whole modern old map, and it's just like, it really brings those things you're talking about out in me that I didn't know I was offended, you know.
Well, sorry. I mean,
you know,
you guys asked the
words,
thinker in the
words.
room to answer a question, and it's like, man, you're not going to just get a simple answer.
Yep.
There is no simple answer.
No simple one.
They get the thought.
Yeah.
And speaking of hunting off res, if you see me up on Mount Jumbo or some getting some elk, just know it's in our treaty, right?
Yeah,
So we
in our
can
treaty,
find your
right.
We'll be up there.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk come to my house for coffee, I'm right against it.
Oh, nice.
Anytime.
I like
Dragging it
that.
into your yard.
Had my implicit and explicit permission.
But yeah, and to go like beyond the concept of the map, like people ask me, like, oh, you know, like everybody like they use this like, what is it, GPS or whatever.
Oh, yeah?
I don't have like I have internal
I don't
GPS.
have
I
any
know
of
like
that.
I could be 500 miles from home. I still know where north is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Still know where home is, what general direction.
Brookie, it looked like you were gonna say something.
I cannot stand up. That's something that tribal people were considered very generous people. You know, we don't mind sharing, and everybody here, I don't want you to feel like you're not welcome on our land. But you know, we also like to understand that you have some respect for the first people here, you know, and the land itself. You know, that's important. And there's Creator has been very generous with all the gifts, you know, that is given to us. You know, when you look outside or around, you know, you see the generosity that's there, and it's good that everybody here understands, you know, that value and the importance of protecting, you know, what's there. And again, the work in this exhibit, you know, has some very good relationship to those basic understandings. Something that I did, you know, when I returned back home in '84, you know, I wanted to really begin to get back into the Confederated, Salish, and Kootenai culture, and the reservation lands were established by our ancestors, and it was a contract, you know, with the United States government, and our chiefs and head people at the time gathered at a point not far from here to go over what this treaty was all about. And Governor Isaacs Stevens, who was representative from our president in Washington, D.C. in 1855, was here to administer or to try to bring everything together so our tribal people would understand what they had to give up. And then by giving up our Aboriginal hunting and gathering areas, which is hundreds, several million acres, you know, extending into parts of Canada as far as Yellowstone Park and places like that, and then of course east into Idaho. That's a huge area, and that sustained our population. And for 9 months out of the year, our tribal people were in the plains hunting buffalo. So we were actually considered plains as well as high plateau tribal people. The Salish language, of course, is spoken here, which is considered the furthest interior Salish, all the way to the coast. You know, and the Columbia River was, of course, the great highway back and forth. So we have relations all over the place. And that's where when you talk about 10,000 years, you know, you can imagine, yeah, you're related to people on the coast, and your uncles and aunts over there, great aunts, they're there, and so you can't help but have that special relationship. And when I came back, you know, getting back involved in our culture and land, I took out the treaty of 1855, the Confederated Treaty, and I made this little card. the size of a credit card, and they call it our gold card. And we can carry, you can put this in your wallet and carry it with you. And on this card, it has all the signers of that treaty at that time, or said to have signed, and there's some discussion as to, well, some of the X's were forged.
For sure.
But I brought these treaties so everybody could have one if you'd like.
Yeah.
It's kind of a special gift for you for being here, for one thing. And I'll pass them out if you'd like. And some of you may have already had them, because it's something that I like to do.
I wanted my studio. I want to do
One in my wallet, and one in my reservation, that's my, I keep it in my reservation, that's my hunting
great
license.
idea.
Cameron has one.
I did that in
Really?
Dillon. I did that in Dillon. I said, here's my hunting
That's
license.
a good idea.
Thanks, Corky.
I made a little comic.
Thank you all for your generosity and speaking and sharing.
Thank you. Hey, Corky, can I get one of
Probably
those?
a good place to stop, but you're all invited to a reception in the library. The only thing we ask is, as a museum, we try to keep food and drink concentrated outside of the exhibits, so it's kind of a funny place to have a reception. But we wanted to share food with you and invite you all to come and have a cookie. But you're right, we just scratched the surface here, but I really appreciate the conversations that took place, and hopefully that you'll be able to talk to the artists and continue these conversations.
This is about Western education.
Big round of applause for our artists in the show.
I guess it might